Hello, everyone. Turning down my phone. You don't hear it. How's everyone doing? I usually give it about 5 minutes just to give people a chance to get the notification that I came on. And I didn't pre-schedule it like I should have. I should have done that. So I almost didn't come on. So we'll have to see how long I go because I woke up with sciatica today. I don't know why. I'm hoping I just slept wrong. Let's see how long this chapter is. Because I've been trying to cut off at the hour and a half. If I could keep it close to an hour, that's even better. Let's see. Well, we could break it up. It's got kind of sections. Oh, it's not very long. Let's see. 348 to 366. It's 18 pages. That's still kind of long. Where's halfway? You know what? There's a good cutoff section right here. I think if it's, we'll see how it goes. So, I'll give it a couple more minutes and I'm just going to start. And I'm going to try to read faster and not talk as much. Hopefully, we won't get any more surprises like we did last chapter. That was a doozy. Goodness gracious. Oh, I can't see the screen with these glasses. There we go. But I don't know how long I can sit here. So I think I might make this a short one. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and start. My Wi-Fi is showing low. It did this to me once before. I hope it doesn't glitch. If you guys notice it glitch, because I can usually, well, I've seen it glitch because my picture goes out, but I'll be reading. So if I glitch at all, let me know. All right. I'm going to just jump in because I need to get done quickly today. So, all right, reading glasses. Alrighty. Okay. All right, this is some types of engrams. Now we ended the very, very long chapter, Emotion and the Life Force, and it was telling you how auditing can get to your engrams and release them, which is what we would call trauma. So engrams to L. Ron Hubbard are what we would consider trauma and the reactive mind is what we would call the subconscious mind. So your trauma lives in your subconscious mind when you can't remember it. And what auditing tries to do is take you back to the earliest trauma. Hi, Susan. He tries in auditing, they try to take you back to the earliest trauma and clear all the traumas you've had. So that's what engrams are all about. So I was just saying a minute ago, Susan, this is going to be a short one. I'm probably not going to read the whole chapter. I woke up with sciatica today, so this is the first time I've sat straight up since I woke up. So there's some cutoffs. It's like this chapter has like 3 sections. So I think I'm just going to read the first section. We'll see how long that takes. So this is called Some Types of Engrams. So they're going to go over the different kinds of traumas, or what he calls engrams. So hang on just a second. Honestly, if I had this to do over again, I may have tried to do hour-long readings and maybe taken a little longer because there were some chapters that took us way too long. That's okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, some types of engrams. 2 examples of each kind of engram are given so that the auditor can clearly understand their differences. Okay, contra survival engram. This is any kind of engram which lies across the dynamics and has no alignment with purpose fight between mother and father shortly after conception. And don't forget, if you haven't been reading with us lately, LRH has this obsession that all of our trauma starts while we're still in the womb, hearing mom and dad. So that's what you have to remember that while I'm reading. That's why he said that. Father strikes mother in the stomach. She screams. First percepts our pain, pressure, sound of the blow, and scream. And he says, GDU, I hate you. You are no good. I'm going to kill you. Mother says, please don't hit me again. Please don't. I'm hurt. I'm hurt. I'm frantic with pain. Father says, lie there and rot you. Goodbye. Well, he didn't have a very good opinion of moms and dads, I'll tell you. Hey, Irish. I think it was Cricket that said, whoever, they were doing like a DNA or ancestry of LRH and gonna look into the parent issue because there wasn't a lot what I looked at about his parents. Maybe we'll hear about his parents in the book we're gonna read next. Because I mean, this guy was obsessed with, like, every couple fought or didn't want their babies. All right, let's keep going. In this engram, we have a severe aberrative situation. First, it is early. Second, because its content says the person who has it is hurt and frantic. Third, because it has a holder and is therefore apt to become chronic. Lie there. Fourth, because it can produce disease and rot. Fifth, because it has religious connotation about God and being damned. Sixth, because it gives the individual a feeling other people are no good. You applies to other people ordinarily. Seventh, because it has an emotional tone by content of hostility. I hate you. And eighth, because the individual post-birth has to live with these restimulative persons, his father and mother. It has other additional effects, giving, like all engrams, two additional and unnecessary valences or personalities. The individual, one of which, the mother's, is a coward valence, and the other, the father's, a bully valence. The individual may dramatize this in several ways. If he does not dramatize it, he feels the pain, as he would then be in his own valence, whenever it is restimulated. If he dramatizes the mother, he will feel the pain she received, which is a blow in the stomach, whereas his own was on his head and heart. If he dramatizes the father, he will be in trouble with society, to say nothing of his own wife and children. There is no winning with any engram of any kind, but so long as a person has engrams, some kinds, the sympathy engram particularly, serve to hold away antagonistic engrams. Oh, Canada, hello. Oh, okay, I remember that name. Oh, oh, I can understand that totally. I always said if I wasn't reading it with you guys and people are expecting me to be here and we have really great discussions sometimes. I couldn't have read it on my own either. I couldn't have done it. But it's also been an eye opener. Several people here have been here for a while. We've learned what's in LRH's head. We looked at it as people in 50s, 60s, 70s, before the internet, before you could really research on your own. What were they thinking when they read it? And then looking at it from this modern point of view, knowing what we know as never ends. And I also have had people who used to be in help me with a lot. Matter of fact, one of the last discussions we had an ex-member in here, and I had one frame of mind about what we were reading, and she gave me another frame, what they were thinking, and it really changed the way I was looking at the chapter. So, I mean, it's been really, really eye-opening. I am glad I did it. All right. Okay. This one's a little bit of a long chapter, so I'm trying to read quickly. Let's see. The second contra to survival example is a morning sickness engram where the mother is vomiting so violently that the compression on the child is severe and renders it unconscious. The mother is vomiting and gasping and saying to herself between spasms, "Oh, why was I ever born? I knew I shouldn't have let him come to me. I knew it. I knew it. It was wrong, but he had to do it anyway." Okay, I can't read some of this stuff. Some of the stuff he puts in here, I just can't. I hate men, kind of thing. I'm sick to my stomach. In this engram, we have something a woman might dramatize if she were pregnant, but which a man could never dramatize as pregnancy, but only by being sick at his stomach. Much morning sickness seems to be an aberration stemming from engrams. Really, guy? This guy's not a doctor, and he's trying to say morning sickness is engrams. That's the kind of stuff that trips me out. Hey, Jay. If you haven't been reading along this whole time, all through this book, he is very upset. I can tell he's read Freud. Very obsessed with all of our trauma stems from being in the womb and listening to parents fight, the mom having an affair, trying to not keep the baby, but failing so that now the baby's injured and later on it becomes an engram. So it's constant through all this engrams and auditing and all of that. And so just to keep you up, why these are the examples he's using. He always uses these examples. So like I said, somebody's checking out his family history because there's got to be some history there with his own parents. While I was in, I became pregnant at 15. The ethics officer, Laura's mother, showed me a passage from Diagnetics about abortion engrams. I was in disbelief when I heard the SO had to. I know. He's totally obsessed with, he thinks all women have tried to unalive their pregnancy, and all of them. It's like all of them. And they failed, so those turn into engrams. And I have even said that if I were in and I read this, I'd be afraid to get pregnant. I'd be afraid to be a mom because everybody's problems are because of their mother, pretty much. And it would scare me to death. So I feel, oh, that's too bad because yeah. So I bet that was scary. Not just to be that young. I mean, I was young. I had my son at 19, but I couldn't. Oh, that had to be hard. Okay. Let's see. Where were we? Oh, we're talking about the morning sickness. Okay, he said, much morning sickness seems to be an aberration stemming from engrams. Somewhere back in time, some mother may have vomited from food poisoning and started the whole thing. Oh my goodness. Perhaps in the days when man was still in trees. So that's a new one, that he's following this particular engram all the way back to the first person to cause the engram, has caused it in all people throughout time. Wow, that's a lot. All right. Now note that the mother is throwing up, that the content, okay, we know what that is being, is the engram. However, says that it won't come up when this is dramatized with the individual in his own balance. He experiences pressure on him and unconsciousness, and thus such a dramatization is impossible. When this is dramatized, it must dramatized as the mother. Okay, let me read that again. When this is dramatized, it must be dramatized as the mother, but the action is not dramatized so much as the command, and we get a condition where the individual with such an engram, when he is sick, cannot vomit. The command of the engram is more important than the action people take in it. On a reactive level, there is no rationality. If this were on a conscious level where it would not be aberrative, of course, the action could be mimicked and then would contain actual getting sick. The action on the conscious level being more important than the word content. In therapy, when we encounter this engram, we may have difficulty entering it because it says that I shouldn't have let this happen, which is a denier. We also find with the it won't come up a holder. The engram will most certainly lift the moment these words and the somatic lift, and these words cannot interrupt the engram. If the engram does not lift, it is because there is a previous engram with much the same content. The aberree has a pattern of dramatization, which he repeats over and over and over, giving people around him many incidents which are more or less alike, except in their point in time. This could be restimulated in the environment, but not in therapy, to a point where it would cause madness, for it may also refer to the child who, identifying himself with the word it, then cannot rise to present time. In therapy, the engram is somewhat drained of power just by being touched with the returned analytical mind. Further, the auditor discovers the patient is not moving on the track, and a scout of the situation soon discovers the holder. For the patient will sooner or later say he can't come up, even if the auditor has not guessed it. In the aberrative sphere, this engram would probably put a heavy block across the second dynamic, and we would find the person in whose reactive mind it was being frigid, prudish, and sharp with children, all of which go together in various combinations. Further, we would find an apprehension that he was going to have to do something when he found out it was wrong. In the psychosomatic sphere, it might cause headaches during or because of intimacy, or a tendency to nausea whenever there was intimacy. Any of the phrases of this engram, like any other phrases in any other engram, would tend to give him both the somatic and the aberration, providing, of course, the individual was in a state of low analytical power, as found in weariness or slight illness. Thus, this one is waiting until somebody says during a future unconsciousness period, preferably in a voice like the mother's, would sound through the walls of the abdomen and womb, ugh, how nasty, or some other phrase to key it in. Nastier, by the way, would not key in ugly, despite a similar syllable to ugh, would not key it in. The sound of vomiting itself probably would key it in. I noticed something here I wanted to say. Where'd it go? Oh, the individual was in a state of low analytical power as found in weariness or slight illness. I wanted to touch on that because we've talked about how sleep deprivation, not getting good nutrition can, we think he did these things on purpose so that you could be more easily controlled, because he talked way early in the book about being in a zombie like part of your brain shuts down and you're in a zombie like state because you're being constantly re-stimulated, your traumas, because being in like the Sea Org environment, you're constantly under stress to get this done and that done and this done. Not a lot of sleep, not a lot of nutrition. So what he did this, he says he's going to save you from that, but what he's really saying, oh, this is what I'm going to do so I can easily control you. So he's saying it again there, that a low analytical power is found in weariness or slight illness. So he's telling us what he knows it causes that, and we know that that's what he's planning on doing. Thank you. Yeah, I've talked to other ex-members about that too. So being a never in and looking in and reading this and hearing him talk about, I mean, we know he studied hypnotism. We know he studied with Jack Parsons in the black magic, and he learned to control people and get them to do what he wants them to do. And when you got to work 80 to 100 hours a week, you got to have these stats in every week. You're under pressure. You can't have your own thoughts. You're not allowed to question anything. You're constantly in a fight or flight mode, and it's going to shut you down inside and in parts of you, and you don't even realize it. And I think that's why it takes people many, 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 many years to realize that this isn't right. And some don't, because I mean, it's done so like normally on an everyday basis that a lot of you, especially if you've been in as a child, since a child or young, I mean, you don't realize that that's what that is. I wouldn't either. If I was in an environment like that, I wouldn't either. So that's why I don't know how much you've been in my chat, but when I go protest, I've gotten to where they've heard, the people inside, the staff and the Sea Org, there's a couple, they've heard everything I have to say. So now I'm just being nice. I'm just, hi, how are you? Because they're victims too. They may not realize what we know. They probably don't. And I tell people that on the street. I go, you got to understand, the people inside, they don't know about Xenu. They haven't done the confidential levels. They're not allowed to talk to other people. They don't know what's going on in other orgs. They may not know about some of the things we do, like some child abuse or this other stuff, because nobody's allowed to talk to each other. LRH opinion on women is not very high. Yes. And it's like, I get he wrote this in 1950. And we've talked about how mental health then was way different. Your choice was an asylum or nothing. So I could see how people would be drawn to this. There are sections of this book I've said would sound good to me. And then he thinks all women have tried to unalive their pregnancy or had an affair while they were pregnant so that the baby heard. I mean, it's constantly through this book. So thank you for commenting on that, because that's what I got out of this book so far, is even though he's saying he's going to cure you of engrams, trauma, and he talks about re-stimulation, he's actually doing it. And that's what we somehow have got to get across to people inside, and that's hard. That's a hard concept to try to get across to somebody when you only got a couple, sometimes 20, 30 seconds before they run in the door. So I'm going to go ahead and read this next section. We'll see where we are at that point. All right. So now we're in pro-survival engrams. This could be, let me wait. You were only ever public. What I'm still sorting out is how much I was deliberately keyed in and made to feel totally responsible for everything in my life or past lives, hard on kin the teeth. I would love to talk to you. I've let some of the other people that have come in that were previous members that had different stories go. But since I'm probably not going to read this whole chapter, I'm glad you're here. Because I always wondered when I talk on the street, I'm like, there's 3 levels of members, and there's the public. And I know you guys get a lot of crap too, but Sea Org and staff, they're like slave labor. So I kind of have wondered, as a public, because most of the people I watch on YouTube have been usually prior Sea Org or prior staff. Hey, Cricket, I was talking about you earlier. You're doing the ancestry on LRH, right? I hope I got that right because I'm terrible with names. Trying to put names to thoughts. So they deliberately key you in too during auditing or just in the environment. Everything responsible for everything in my life or past life. Now we have understood that. Hey, Dusty. We're getting close to being done with Diagnetics, but we're reading about engrams here. And I don't know if you've been in here enough, Dusty, to realize all through this book, all this man talks about, all of our problems stem all the way back to the womb. That all moms fight, all parents fight, all moms try to unalive their pregnancies. This was 1950 when he wrote it. I know it didn't happen as much as he thinks it did. Or they have all had affairs, and you hear this in the womb and it screws you up for life. That's pretty much all he says. So, hey, Lady Smurf. So, we have an ex-member up here who was helping me out with some of this, because we know that LRH caused a lot of re-stimulation of trauma, or actually what we were reading before, way early in the book, is he was causing trauma, in the environment. So, and then the environment constantly re-stimulated your trauma while you're there. He says he's going to fix this in you, but really he's causing it. We talk about projection a lot, especially with narcissists. He wasn't a malignant narcissist, from what I understand, from what I've read. So that's where it really opened my eyes. I've listened to a lot of ex-members talk, but not everybody is going to get to the nitty-gritty of what they went through every minute of the day. They tell us their story, but as Neverends, we're going to miss a lot. So that's why reading this has been such an eye-opener, and literally reading his plan on how he's going to treat everybody, when he's saying, oh, we're going to fix you, this is what's wrong with you, but in reality he was doing it. He thought, oh, well, I can just write this in a book and no one will notice. I got out in the mid-'80s, mostly in ethics handling while sex checks. I'm 60 now. Okay, email me. I didn't get to put a description in this, but definitely email me. I would love to talk to you. That'd be awesome. I'm 55, so we're pretty close. But yeah, in the early 90s, we saw this. My husband and I just got married, and he's military, and we just got stationed in California, and we thought, oh, that sounds interesting. We almost went, but thank goodness we didn't. I think it was only because they didn't have anything in our area. We were up near Monterey. Yeah, glad you're out. Glad you got out a while ago. That's my biggest goal, is just try to get half of what I want to do is, when I'm out there, is let them know there's a way they can escape, and then also informing because our Austin org is across from a college, so I talk to a lot of college students. Yeah, I'm glad you got out. All right, did we start the next paragraph? If I did, I'm going to restart. So, pro-survival engram. This could be any engram which, by content only, not by any real aid to the individual containing it, pretended to assist survival. Let us take, and it's all about intimate. I changed the words. I just can't say some of the stuff he says. So I'm just going to say, let us take an intimacy engram. Mother and father are engaged in intimacy. I don't even want to read this. It's just because they say if mom and dad have intimacy while she's pregnant, it's going to give the child an engram. It's pretty much in things that they said during. I'm not even going to read that. All right. Obviously, this is a valuable incident because one, it's beautiful and it's wonderful, but it is also extremely painful. It cannot be followed because it has first something which beckons part of the mind back and then later tells it to get up. Things that are beautiful and wonderful can cause our patient, not in therapy. I'm not reading this. Yep, I can totally understand that. Because he talks all through this book. Any intimacy during pregnancy causes an engram. I was curious about that. So thank you for telling me. Because, I mean, as myself, if I was reading this, I wouldn't want to. I'd be scared to death to even have a baby. But that makes sense because of all the stuff he says in here. So, and I don't know why he's just so hung up on we have to have these memories all the way back to the womb. But he is. So, all right. I'm just going to skip that and do the best I can because I'm seeing words on the other page I'm probably not going to read either. I don't know why he just can't have an example that's not X-rated. Let's see. Dramatization of this can be in either the father valence or the mother valence. To dramatize it in the personal valence would mean physical pain. Thus, the individual holding this will be found varied only by his other engrams to be as father, disgusted after telling his partner to get up. The emotion it is contained is how the words get up were spoken. This is a telegraphed emotion out of voice tones, not word content. Engrams always contain both. In therapy, we find the reactive mind very chary, cautious, or wary. Is that a word or he make that up? Cherry? I'm just going to say very wary of letting this one come to view because, after all, there are whole classes of these favorable evaluation phrases in engrams, and wherever he comes upon one, the auditor will find the pre-clear's reactive mind holding out on him. I don't want to lose you. I can't let go of this, I'd fall, and so forth. But this is, after all, just another engram, and pleasant or not is aberrative. So now he's saying even a pleasant engram is aberrative. That doesn't really make sense to other things that he said. Masochistic and sadistic impulses often stem from intimacy engrams, which contain those specific things. So the auditor is not to infer that merely because this intimacy is painful to the child, it will make the child a masochist or a sadist. If masochism or sadism is present in the patient, it is caused by engrams which contain assault, beating, enjoyment of pain, and engrams which homonymically seem to state that intimacy and pain are alike, such as a normal intimacy which says, and I can't say that. Okay. Thus, our pro-survival intimacy engram, as the first example of one here, is relatively innocent in a person's aberrative pattern. But by an accident of words, it could be very different in its aberrative effect. I see the chat's off the corner of my eye. I can sometimes see it moving. Scientology changed a lot since I was in. Some edicts are followed religiously and others are ignored for convenience. Contradictions have always been common and confusing by design. Yeah, we've heard that, especially when you have two separate leaders. Something I heard from somebody that wrote a book about LRH. My tissues are gone. Said David Miscavige hated L. Ron Hubbard, and he has tried to change as much as he possibly could. Let's see if my hubby's... So I can see how maybe now, especially when you have more people that don't remember LRH. I hope he's still awake. He was awake a minute ago. I asked him to bring me some tissues. But yeah, I can see that. And because there are people, that talk about it and they're like, it gets confusing. Because we think everything's followed to the letter, but we find out, no, not really. And that can cause, that just adds to the constant stress, is not knowing what'll be followed, what won't. You're confused, keeps you on your toes. I can see that. He was still awake. Awesome. And my tissues disappeared. I took Zyrtec, that's not helping. This is why I like having ex-members in my chat. We get extra information. All right, where were we? Okay, the second pro-survival example concerns another prenatal engram. One auditor commented while he was being cleared that he had thought of my life, BD, before Diagnetics, as a graph of years in which the time from conception to birth occupied 1/15 of the linear distance between conception and present time. But now think of the prenatal period as occupying 2/3 of the distance between the beginning and now. The prenatal area cleared at last went back to being 1/15. Okay. Me? Oh, I'm class of 87. Back up. My husband's class of 88. We're 6 months apart, but he was behind me a little bit. Are you the same class? Oh, okay. That's cool. I know we were close in age. Let's see. Where were we? Oh. So I get what they're saying there math-wise. So you're still work, so it's still kind of in there, and you have to I still translate normal emotions in Scientology emotional conditioning. I'm glad you got out as early as you did, but I can see how it'd be hard to change that way of thinking. Because, I mean, there's been the only thing I can equate it to is basic training in the Army. And honestly, it's like this hard compared to what you guys go through. But, we had the sleep deprivation. We were constantly going, it was difficult. Oh, graduated early. Okay. And, and I still, that was a major change in the way I do things, I can, even now at 55. So I got out in 1990. And I'm still, very disciplined, follow the rules. If I'm told to do something a certain way, I'll do it that way, unless I can find a more efficient way. So, I mean, anything you go through that's major or long term, I mean, it's going to be part of your psyche for a long, long time, if not forever. All right. The mother subject to high blood pressure, continually brought about a condition of great pain in the unborn infant, particularly when she was agitated. This is a prime source of migraine headache. Whatever it was which agitated her into high blood pressure at the moment this engram was received was unknown, and much of the plot of prenatal life may remain unknown, for the explanatory data may come before the pain and the engram, and a complete recording only happens after the instant of pain when some degree of unconsciousness comes about. The mother at the beginning of the engram, when pressure began to build up and stiffen out the unborn child, was weeping. She was by herself. Oh, how am I ever going to get out of it? Everything looks so drab and colorless to me. Oh, why did I ever start it? I can't possibly go through with it, but I have to. I would be sick if I didn't. Wow, she's lamenting. Oh Lord, everything comes in on me at once. I am utterly trapped, but there, I will go through with it. I'll feel better. I'll be brave and do it. I got to be brave. I am brave. I am the bravest person in the world. I have to be, and I am. The pressure receded. Also, according to LRH, everyone talks out loud or thinks out loud. Now, I do talk to my dogs a lot, but I don't think every mom ever said all of this stuff out loud as often as he says. But it makes more sense to put it out there. Exactly what this was about will remain a mystery to the auditor who reduced it, the patient who had it, the author, and the reader, such is often the case with an engram. They are conceived in misunderstanding, and they aren't to be understood, save mechanically, and only deleted from the engram bank. That's the first time he's mentioned that there are things that you will have memories of that are confusing and you don't know why. I was a little kid when my mother and aunt got us in, 73, 74. Scientology conditioning got into my kid head, and is a reflex thought process until I check myself. It's weird and exhausting sometimes. I can imagine. Yeah, especially if it gets to you, or, so mainly almost your whole first 20 years. I mean, that's your, key development time. And so now it's in there. I can totally see that. Where were we? Okay, we talked about the mist. So most of this book said that you have to go to the early engram, and he talks about what caused it, and you have to get rid of it. This is actually the first time he's actually said you may not know why certain engrams happen or why certain things were said. So that was kind of an interesting paragraph. This is a particularly dangerous engram to have, for it contains a manic in the words bravest person in the world. I, of course, is ordinarily used by the unborn child to be himself, when the engram is at least able to affect an analyzer in which there is speech. Before that moment, of course, there is just a recording without word meaning, although even before the words are given meaning, the engram can be aberrative. This is further dangerous because it says, I'm trapped, and because it says, everything comes in on me at once. Trapped is our enemy, the holder. But everything comes in on me at once is a grouper. Further, the remainder of the content as an engram will not compute in the analyzer. It says one must go through with it, but that one cannot go through with it. That one would get sick if I didn't go through with it, but that it is impossible. Everything being equal to everything as our moronic enemy, the reactive mind, computes, this engram both repels and attracts therapy. It brings about a condition of indecision in the analytical mind, which is insufferable. The individual holding this engram might find himself, as it acted as aberration, first in the manic portion of being the bravest person in the world, and then regressed a trifle by a slight change of restimulators, such as his migraine headache getting bad, find himself utterly undecided about any course of action, and with the telegraphed emotion contained in the tears of being very depressed. But this is pro-survival because it apparently dictates a way out of a situation. As an additional factor, it brings with its phrase about everything being drab and colorless, colorblindness, at least in recall, so that the recalled images of the past are seen in the mind as having no color. It can bring about, if added to by enough subsequent dramatizations, actual perceptic colorblindness. The whole engram is very likely, when combined with other factors, to place the individual in an institution with all of his somatic turned on migraine, and because of the grouper, all other pain he felt in his life turned on as well. This grouper bunches the track of the engram bank all in one place and then puts the individual squarely in that place. In therapy, when this was contacted, a case which had been classified as insane came into a release state of normal. The patient had been institutionalized, was in the fetal position, and had regressed physically. That she kept screaming these exact words and weeping had been placed on her record as the manifestation of a childhood delusion. The case was opened by repeater technique, using the words she kept screaming after she had had her attention fixed upon the auditor by loud monotonous noise. There were some former incidents containing these words which had to be reached before the incident and dramatization would ease. However, engrams like this are commonly contacted in more or less normal people and are relieved as routine. A very high degree of re-stimulation had been experienced by this patient, and several severe loss engrams had occurred which had kept earlier content keyed in. It might also be remarked in all these trapped, caught, can't get out of it cases, which is to say, where there are several holders and also a high quantity of painful emotion, that certain fetal aspects are visible even when the case is normal. A shiny skin, a spinal curvature, only partial development of the testicles, all are common, and one or many such signs may be present. Okay, I'm going to end there today. There's still more chapter, but it's like a new section. It's going to go into sympathy engrams. So he's said before, and he's saying it here, that these engrams, especially prenatal or engrams, can cause physical deformity. And we early in the book, the very first chapter, he says he's going to cure everything physically wrong with you with auditing. So we understand now why Scientologists don't go to doctors, because they're told every LRH and Diagnetics and auditing can fix this. And I now understand why so many, even very wealthy Scientologists, don't get help until they're fourth stage cancer, and why so many die from fourth stage cancer. Because up until it gets horrible, they're trying to use Scientology to feel better, because this is what they were taught. So now it makes a lot more sense. So they don't end up going to the doctor until it's beyond, they just can't deal with it anymore. Scientology seems to make individuals in constant self-doubt and checking everything. Always something to get keyed in about, also by design. LRH was diabolical. That's a very good word for him. Because I've said I did a little bit of background on him. I read some of his background, and the guy failed at everything he ever tried, except this. And so I was like, he's diabolically. I said he's evil smart, or he's super smart. He could have taken this Dianetics and really helped people had he not got a little overboard with some of it. Because some of it I've read is, a lot like therapy. And because back in the 50s, mental health was not what it is now. So he really could have done some good had he not gone to the nth degree of ridiculousness. Some of this makes sense when you look at it as your subconscious trauma, your stimulating trauma. He was broken. You want a genealogy tidbit? Yeah, we were talking about that because I am very interested in. He's got an issue with his mom and parents. I know we're gonna find out something if it was ever recorded. My mouth is dry. But yeah. And I know it was talked about just briefly in what I read that he did study some Freud, and I can really tell. I wonder, did LRH's mom cheat on his dad, and his dad is someone else? Or maybe his dad reckoned he couldn't have fathered him, as LRH failing at school, etc. was probably a big disappointment, especially when he failed the Naval Academy and his dad was in the Navy. I know that was a big deal. On the 1950 census, he is listed as writer-author for occupation, but under industry, it says fiction author, which is crossed out. In its place, written textbook publisher. Wow, living in New Jersey. I know he lived in New Jersey for a while. Yeah, because he peddled Dianetics as this. I mean, when we read, he talks about the science of Dianetics has been used for a long time. So anybody that, doesn't have a way to, research that are going to believe and take it at face value that this sounded like something that's been studied and used for a long time, that he didn't just write the book and publish it in 1950 or 51. And so I think that's, how so many people got into it and stayed in. It sounded like it would help people. It really did. And like I said, it does go to his mental state that he had to go to beyond just, if he would, like I said, if he would have just left this and tried to clear people of actual trauma and hadn't created the environment that he did in Scientology, people would have got something out of it. But I've heard from a lot of ex-members, they said, because of how ridiculous it is in some ways, that there isn't, even if you took away the abusiveness, that there's not a redeeming quality in Scientology. There could have been at one time, but he took it too far. So I'm going to end that here. If you came in late, I woke up with sciatica, which is not a thing that I've had to deal with. And this is the first time I've sat straight up today. I'm going to have to go. I didn't even do an hour today, but I almost called off completely, but I knew I couldn't do it. So I'll finish up these. I think the textbook references Dianetics. Oh, yeah, I did too as soon as you said that. I'll email you. I'll fill you in on more details of my story. Okay, here's my email because I put it in. I usually put it in the description, but I was in a hurry. All right, here's my email. Definitely give me an email. And anybody that talks to me in confidence, it stays in confidence. So don't worry about that. I've always been that way. If somebody tells me something in a room full of people, I'm like, oh, okay, that's okay. But if somebody tells me one-on-one, that's it. It stays there. So thank you guys for dropping in. Thank you, McMeister, for your input. It really added to the reading and getting information from you. I love it when you guys come in. We get so much more information and more of, you were in it and what it meant to you. That was really awesome. So y'all have a good week. My husband has surgery this week. So I don't know how many days I'm going to make it to Austin this week. So just keep an eye out. I'll try to make it at least a couple times, I hope. I'm going to mod for Brain Fog. If anyone wants to hang out in San Francisco, go do a room raid on Brain Fog. Oh, no problem, Irish Mart. You're welcome. I thank you guys. Like I said, if I had to read this by myself, I would have gave up. All right. Y'all have a good week. Bye.